problem with my iPad. Needs a new battery.
You want me to run and get the book?
I'll need a, let me see, maybe I have it on this other one. This is an oldie.
The one that works.
Yeah. I started noticing this. It'll indicate that it's charged, but it's not. It doesn't come on. And then if I plug it in, then it says 5%. So it's not reliable. I think you can get them replaced at one of these places, right?
They have those kind of stores.
Where they can put in, open it up.
iFix stores.
Yeah. So let's see. It is. Shiva Tattva. Okay, let's So here in this first Shiva Tattva book, there's the preface, I read that, and then there's chapter 1, Lord Shiva's highest benediction. First section is cheating the cheaters. The second section is the principle of Lord Shiva. And the third is granting perfect love. Yeah, and then chapter 2 is titled The Post and the Person. And there are two sections. The duty of destruction and the depersonal associate. Then chapter 3 it's titled Three Considerations. And that has 3 sections. Established truth, service in pastimes of majesty, and service in human pastimes. Yes. And chapter 4 is called Gatekeeper to the Abode of Love. And it's just one tiny little, one page actually. Page 28, yeah. Page 30. So we'll begin this. Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Kuroti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Chishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most beloved Diksha and Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa, Astatarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa, Astatarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Astotarasata Sri Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So I'm just going to continue reading, because I was reading and I didn't get very far. But now, you know that in the beginning of this book, actually this book is taken from 3 different lectures that Srila Gurudev gave. So, and then they put it together in this way. So, at first, there is an excerpt from Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Srila Sanatana Goswami. And if you have read any of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you know that the first part of the book, there are 2 parts, part 1 and 2. So the first part is the story of Sri Narada Muni. And Narada Muni is on a quest. He's going throughout the universe. And his objective is that he wants to find who is the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. Not an easy task. There are so many exalted personalities who are pure Vaishnavas. But amongst them, which one really is the greatest recipient? But you know, it doesn't start on other planets, this quest. He starts right in South India. That there's a king in South India who's very pious. And Narada Muni goes there and tries to approach that king who is in the midst of doing so many yagyas and sacrifices, and as Narada Muni comes, he begins to glorify this king. And he begins to say to him, you are the greatest recipient of Bhagavan's mercy, the Supreme Lord. The king says, what? What are you talking about? What? How can you dare to say such a thing? And then he begins to deprecate himself, that I'll tell you the reasons why I'm not, So, but then he begins to say, but actually I can suggest to you who I consider to be the greatest recipient. You'll have to go to the heavenly planets and the planet of Lord Indradev, the king of the demigods. Now he certainly can be considered the greatest recipient. So then Narada Muni goes there, and same thing happens. That the Indra is saying, what? Don't you know how I offended Krishna in so many different circumstances? And I have so many disqualifications. But if you want to go, who is the next one after that? I'm forgetting, I'm trying to do this from my memory. I think it was Prahlad Maharaj, perhaps. I'm not sure. Could have been It could have been Lord Shiva at that point. Yeah, could have been Lord Shiva. So that's described in the beginning of this book, which I read earlier. So now Gurudev is explaining, because Lord Shiva also became somewhat upset, and he embraced Narada, greeting him, but he said, no, you don't understand. How? There's no possibility that I can be the greatest recipient. I'll give you all the different reasons. For example, I was given this lowly task of associating with the mode of ignorance in the form of the destruction of the universe, right? And also my associates are all witches and ghosts and low creatures. And review that.
And how to preach in person.
Yeah. So, Lord Shiva says to Narada, anyway, Narada, okay, I might as well just read it. So once the great sage Narada Muni traveled to the abode of Lord Shiva, and he began glorifying him, saying, you are very near and dear to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Not only that, but you are Krishna's manifestation. You are none different from him. You can give liberation and also Krishna Prem, the rare jewel of transcendental love for Krishna. So hearing Narada glorify him in numerous ways, Lord Shiva became angry, and he said, your glorification of me is false. I am not at all dear to Sri Krishna. So now Gurudev is telling that Lord Shiva is actually most dear to Sri Krishna, and therefore Krishna can give him services which he cannot give anyone else. When the demigods and the demons were churning the milk ocean in order to obtain the nectar of immortality, the first substance produced was a powerful and dangerous poison burning the entire world. Now the demigods appealed to Sri Krishna, and he advised them to request Lord Shiva to drink the poison. Thus they worshipped Lord Shiva and they prayed, please save us, only you can protect us. Then Lord Shiva collected the poison, took it in his mouth, but he hesitated to swallow it. You know why? Because he was thinking, oh, Lord Krishna is here in my heart. Oh, the poison will affect him. Therefore, he kept the poison in his throat, which was burned, and his neck turned the color blue. So that's also explained that actually it was like a decoration. Now it's called Nilakanta, with a blue neck. Yeah? So now out of genuine humility, Lord Shiva told Narada, I want to be his beloved devotee, but actually I am not. You know that I always wear ashes from burial grounds and a garland of skulls. All my associates, they're ghosts and witches. So I am not qualified to be Krishna's dear devotee. If I am so dear to him, then why would he have ordered me to engage with the mode of ignorance in the terrible function of destroying the universe? And if I am such a great recipient of his mercy, why would he have ordered me to become Shankaracharya and preach a philosophy that is adverse to him? So actually, although he expressed otherwise, it was because Shiva is so dear to Krishna that Krishna was able to give him the difficult task of appearing as Shankaracharya. Now many people, they had been worshipping the Supreme Lord, only to fulfill their selfish purposes, thinking, oh, simply by our worship of God, he will be pleased with us and he will satisfy all our worldly desires. Does that sound familiar? So they worshipped him only so that he would rapidly arrange for all of their needs, but not to please him. They're not worshipping to please him. And they were thinking, then Lord Krishna thought, this is very dangerous. So he called Lord Shiva and he instructed him, such false devotees, they will create great disturbances. So keep them far away from me. Create a philosophy which teaches Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya. The absolute is true, this world is false. You should preach, all souls are Shiva, all souls are Brahma, all are one. You are Brahma, the impersonal absolute. There is no need to worship any other god. You are the supreme God. So reluctant, Lord Shiva asked to Krishna, can you please tell someone else to do this? I am not qualified for this service. And Krishna replied, no, you will have to do this in the entire world. I see no one else who is capable. So just imagine. But here's the topmost Vaishnava, and he's being instructed that he has to preach an atheistic philosophy to attract those persons who are atheistic temperament, right? And who would otherwise cause great trouble and difficulty for the Vaishnava community if they enter in. That also sounds a little familiar. Yeah. But, at any rate, Krishna was telling to Lord Shiva that you have to do this, because otherwise it will be very dangerous for my, movement of bhakti in this world. You will have to come to the earth planet and take this form of Shankaracharya and preach that you are all God, everything is one. This impersonalistic and actually Mayavad philosophy. So he did that, but really he didn't like to have to do it. So we should understand that it is not that always our activities will be to our liking in the service of the Lord. Sometimes we'll have to do seva, which is not going to be particularly pleasing to our senses. The whole Bhagavad Gita is based upon that principle, isn't it? That Arjuna, he was thinking, no, I can't do this, I can't fight. From his own perspective, he would be the loser, he would be suffering, he would be actually suffering. Even he would not be able to enjoy, even if they win the battle, but because he's killing his teachers in the battlefield, oh, this is not good, this is bad. But we know that the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita was for Krishna to solve this dilemma of Arjuna through giving the highest transcendental knowledge of relationship with the Supreme. And that relationship means bhakti. And bhakti means what? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. What is favorable, anukul, for Krishna, not for our senses. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. So feeling ashamed, Lord Shiva now told Narada, at last I had to agree to follow his order. And appearing as Shankaracharya, I preached everywhere. You are Brahma, you are Brahma, you are the impersonal Brahma. The entire world is false. So I am so much regretting this. I know that I have committed a great offense by causing so many people to be averse to Lord Krishna. Still, to carry out his order, I spread this doctrine. It is clear by the fact that he sometimes gives me such orders that I am not his dearest one. So Lord Shiva also expressed to Narada his regret in having given benedictions to Lord Krishna's enemies. And to fulfill his Lord's desires, he had given benedictions to demons like Ravan, Vrikasur, Shalva, and Jayadratha, and thus he had performed many activities that were seemingly opposed to Krishna and to Krishna Bhakti. So Narada Muni said, "O Master, please don't try to mislead me. I know that whatever you do is to please Lord Krishna and to assist him in his many pastimes for the benefit of all beings. You told me that you have many times given benedictions to his enemies. I know that his enemies, as well as the enemies of his devoted cousins, the Pandavas, they worship you for ill-motivated benedictions." So Narada is saying, yes, I know you've given these benedictions to the enemies of Krishna and to the enemies of the Pandavas. But actually, that is because they're worshipping you. You are obliged to give them some benediction. I also know that you grant them the benedictions, but those benedictions, they're not foolproof. They always have some loophole. Actually, you cheat these beneficiaries in order to please Lord Krishna. So you are undoubtedly his dearest friend. And Narada Muni is continuing to insist. So Shiva and Narada, they continued to discuss some historical incidents which, according to Shiva, proved that he was not dear to Krishna, but according to Narada, proved the opposite. Now, a loophole. The great epic Mahabharata, it tells us of King Jayadratha, one of the many demons who received such a clever benediction from Lord Shiva. Duryodhana, the paternal cousin of the 5 Pandava brothers, had given his sister, Dushala, in marriage to King Jayadratha, and therefore the king had also become like a brother-in-law of the Pandavas. So once, Jayadratha tried to kidnap the Pandava's wife, Draupadi, desiring strongly to make her his own wife. Just imagine, he's going to try to kidnap the wife of the 5 Pandavas and make her his own wife. Sounds to me like it's not a very good winning proposal. So, as he forced her onto his chariot, she admonished him, crying, "I am the wife of the Pandavas, and when they catch you, they will punish you and kill you." So Jayadratha's arrogance, it prevented him from hearing her, and he continued his abduction. Meanwhile, the sage Narad, he approached the Pandavas and informed them, "Oh, I saw Jayadratha taking away Draupadi, and she was weeping." 2 of the Pandavas, Bhim and Arjun, immediately chased after Jayadratha. Bhim dismounted his chariot and ran faster than Jayadratha's horses. With his bow and arrows, Arjun created a fire that surrounded the chariot of Jayadratha, who was then captured and could not move. Severely beaten by Bhim and arrested by Arjun, Jayadratha was bound to the chariot, and he was taken to where Yudhishthira Maharaj had been staying with Draupadi. Bhima and Arjuna, they spoke to Yudhishthira, their respected senior brother, and Bhima urged him, I want to kill Jayadratha. Please order me to kill him. So in support of Bhima, Arjuna said, Jayadratha has performed a heinous act, and he should be killed. Then King Yudhishthira replied, well, the offense, it was committed against Draupadi, so we should take the case to her, and we will do whatever she orders. So when Jayadratha was brought at the feet of Draupadi, she mercifully told her husbands, don't kill him, forgive him. He is our brother-in-law. And if you kill him, then your cousin's sister will be widowed, and she will weep for the rest of her life. So Bhima and Arjuna, they then approached Lord Krishna and they appealed to him. What should we do? We have vowed to kill Jayadratha, and now Draupadi tells us to forgive him. So Krishna replied, for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So then Arjuna shaved King Jayadratha's head, leaving 5 patches of hair. Why 5? 5 Pandavas. And he shaved one side of his face, leaving the other side unshaven. Now Jayadratha felt humiliated, and after being released by Bhima and Arjuna, he considered it better to have died. Now he thought, I will somehow take revenge. And thus absorbed, he went to Gangotri in the Himalayas, and he undertook a severe type of penance to please Lord Shiva. After some months, he gave up all food, water, and bodily activities, and he was about to die. So at this point, Lord Shiva came before him and asked what boon he wanted as a result of his austerity. So Jayadratha replied, I want revenge against the Pandavas. I want to defeat and kill all of them. So Lord Shiva told him, you can defeat the Pandavas, but only Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakul, and Sahadev, not Arjuna. You'll not be able to defeat him. So then Jayadratha said, if you cannot benedict me to my full satisfaction, well then please grant that neither Arjuna nor anyone else will be able to kill me. Then Lord Shiva replied, I can grant you this. If your head is severed and it falls on the ground, the person who caused this will die immediately. Your life will be saved and your head will rejoin your body. You may be killed hundreds of thousands of times, but you will not die. On the other hand, if your severed head falls into your father's hand and he throws it on the ground, then you will die. And Jayadratha was satisfied, thinking, my father would never do this. So when the battle of Kurukshetra began, Jayadratha took the side of the Pandavas' enemy, Duryodhana. So one evening during the battle, as the sun was setting, Jayadratha's father was absorbed in prayer and making an offering of water to the sun god. Actually, there's a little background of this one, because Duryodhana was very happy when he heard that Jayadratha had this benediction, right? So what did Duryodhana do? What did he do? He arranged on the battlefield that Jayadratha would be on the farthest end of the battlefield, which is many miles. We're talking about many, many miles. And there would be a complete fortress of warriors guarding Jayadratha. Why? Because if Jayadratha, if Arjuna is able to get to Jayadratha, then there's a possibility that Arjuna and all the other Pandavas will not die, that they'll be victorious. Because here's a chance where they can all die, especially Arjuna, right? Because if his head falls off, then Arjuna dies. So he was very joyful when he heard about this benediction. Oh, okay. So what they did was they arranged military phalanxes all along the way, from the one end of the battlefield all the way to the other. And Arjuna was fighting and fighting from the early morning all through the day, like anything, to get there. So, but still he was a couple of miles away by the end when the sun was about to set. Yes. So, what happened then? So Jayadratha's father, at that setting of the sun, he was many miles away from the battlefield, Jayadratha's father. And he was absorbed in prayer, because it's the Sandhya time. And he was making an offering of water to the sun god. So Arjuna, he now saw this opportune moment. Actually, Krishna told to Arjuna, Arjuna, set your arrow to your bow and fire. So Arjuna, he immediately did that, even from a few miles away, and he shot his arrow skillfully. He released this arrow, and he severed Jayadratha's head from his body. Now, it doesn't say here, Gurudev is shortening it. He's saying he caused it to fall into the hands of his meditating father. But that head had to be carried by the arrow that severed his head a few miles away. So just imagine, you talk about archery, this is archery. Okay. So he carried the head directly into the hands of his father, who had his eyes closed at that moment because he was offering water to the sun god. And when his hands were joined together, the head fell into his hands, and he looked at, and he suddenly opened up his eyes. So, what is this in my hands? And he went, ah! And it fell into the fire. So now Jayadratha was finished. Yes. So he tossed his head on the ground. Then opening his eyes, he exclaimed, what was that wet thing? And seeing that he had just thrown his son's head, he began to cry, oh my son, you are now dead. So, was that a loophole in the benediction of Lord Shiva?
Just a slight plot twist.
Huh?
Is it a slight plot twist?
Yes. So now, the next one is a clever benediction. Envious of Krishna, and with a desire for the strength to destroy him, the demon Shalva also took shelter of Lord Shiva. And he performed a severe type of austerity. He ate no more than a handful of ashes daily. And after 1 year, Lord Shiva became pleased with him and asked him to beg for a boon. So we see all throughout the Shastras, demons are very capable of doing severe austerities, each and every one of these in these cases, to gain their ends, like Hiranyakashipu. And then they get these benedictions by doing those austerities. Yes, so Lord Shiva became pleased with him after 1 year and asked him to beg for a boon. Shalva begged from Lord Shiva the gift of an airplane, saying, this airplane should perform as I wish. It should be operated by my mind, and on my order, it should go to heaven or anywhere I desire. In summer, it should be air-conditioned. If there are only 2 men, there should only be 2 seats. And if I want to travel with hundreds of thousands of persons, many seats should manifest. It should never crash due to mechanical difficulty, and it should be equipped with all varieties of weapons. It should be dangerous and fearful to the Yadus. So Lord Shiva agreed, and Shalva was helped by the demon Mayadanava to manufacture a mystical airplane that began to destroy Dwarka, Lord Krishna's abode. Shalva personally attacked from above, and his soldiers attacked on the ground. Headed by Pradyumna, the Yadu dynasty warriors fought with Shalva and his army, but they could not defeat him. Finally, Lord Krishna personally appeared on the battlefield. And after much intense fighting on both sides, and many mystic displays by Shalva, the Lord took up his disc, he cut off the demon's head, and gave him liberation. So in this way, the benedictions given by Lord Shiva to the enemies of Lord Krishna, they always have a weak point, a loophole. Lord Shiva is extremely clever, and he is always serving his Lord Sri Krishna. Narada knew this fact, and he wanted to publicize Lord Shiva's glories. Shiva is very near and dear to Krishna, and even non-different from him. So try to always honor him, for he is Krishna's greatest devotee. So there's a verse quoted from the end of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 13th chapter, verse 16. Na nimna ganam yata ganga, devanam achyuto yata, vaishnavanam yata, shambhu, purananam idam tata. So there are 4 things mentioned here. Just as the Ganga is the greatest of all rivers, namna ganam yata Ganga, and Lord Achyuta, Krishna, is the supreme among deities, Devanam Achyuto Yata. And as Lord Shiva is the greatest of the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, so Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all Puranas. Purananam idam tata. So now the principle of Lord Shiva, the Shiva Tattva. The principle of Lord Shiva, Shiva Tattva, is extremely complex. The principle of Brahma, not so complicated, because Lord Brahma is always a jiva, a finite spirit soul, and sometimes when there is no qualified jiva, Lord Vishnu personally takes the post of Brahma, but that is rare. So Shiva is not like that. He is not a finite soul. After passing through the 8 material coverings, and after crossing the Viraja, the river that divides the material world and the spiritual world, and crossing the planet of Lord Brahma, the highest material planet, then one comes to the planet of Shiva. And there he is known as Sadashiv, a manifestation of Lord Vishnu. Shiva Tattva can be understood by the analogy of yogurt and milk. Yogurt is nothing but a transformation of milk. Milk, it can become yogurt, but yogurt cannot become milk. So this analogy is found in the Brahma Samhita, and it is elucidated in Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary, where he says, just as milk is transformed into yogurt by contact with a transforming agent, Sri Govinda, so Lord Sri Krishna similarly accepts the form of Shambhu, Shiva, in order to accomplish a specific purpose. And the example of yogurt is actually given in order to convey the idea of cause and effect, not the idea of transformation. Sri Krishna is reality. Sri Krishna is reality, and he cannot be transformed. So it is not possible for him to undergo any kind of distortion. A wish-fulfilling gem, it manifests many things according to one's desire, yet its constitutional nature remains untransformed. So this is the Shiva Tattva section now, and tomorrow is Lord Shiva's appearance day called Shiva Ratri. We're going to have a festival in the morning, and the speaking will begin at what time?
Noon.
Yeah, so we'll have kirtan as usual, 10:30 or so till noon, and then we'll have 2 hours of Katha till 2 p.m. and we'll cover more of this book. Let's see how far we get tomorrow. So all glories to Shiva Mahadeva ki jai. Lord Shiva, the transformation of milk into yogurt ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Pancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bheva Cha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo.